Good morning. Hope you're having a great week. It is Monday, September 8th, 7:04 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, local time here in Stayton, Oregon. I am in the drop yard of, let's go over here to the trailer, JELD-WEN Windows and Doors. Never heard of them before. Trying to pick up a load. It was originally supposed to pick up Sunday at noon, and I booked the load I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday last week, and Friday they called me and told me that it was delayed a day. It'll be ready on Monday, but they didn't know what time it was going to be ready on Monday. So I drove over here yesterday afternoon, Sunday afternoon. I was not able to reach the broker, the agent, wasn't answering their phone this weekend, and the JELD-WEN, the shipping people, they weren't answering their phone this weekend either. So I couldn't reach anyone to find out what time the trailer was going to be ready Monday. It's going to be ready at like 2 a.m., 10 p.m. I have no idea. So I drove over here hoping that there would be somebody at the location that could give me some information. And I got here and there was nobody here, so I just parked in their shipping area. And then somebody replied to my video of me driving over here and parking here, and they said, hey, that's not where you're supposed to park. You're supposed to park over in the drop yard. And they gave basic directions of roughly where the drop yard was at. So I walked over here to check and see what the drop yard looked like and try to find the drop yard. And on my way over here, I noticed that there were people like at the back of the building outside doing inventory or something. So I walked over to one of them and told them, who I was, what I was doing, and asked them when the shipping people show up. And they told me it was like 5 or 6 a.m. is when the shipping people show up. And they confirmed where the drop yard location was at. So I walked over here and looked through every single trailer in this drop yard looking for my load. And every one of these trailers is empty except one. There's only one loaded trailer. I think it's that one right there. And it has a Texas load in it. It's not my load. They have 13 Landstar trailers back here in this drop yard. Only one of them's loaded, so that's 12. 12 empty Landstar trailers in this drop yard. And then there's 2 empty Landstar trailers parked in the road on the side of their building. So they have 14, at least 14 empty Landstar trailers here. That's not including all the ones that are in dock doors. There's like 8 or so in dock doors. And there's some of them that have like what looks like return product in them. I wonder if this customer actually wants this many Landstar trailers on their property. I've been to customers and shops that have complained about Landstar trailers on their property, like they're trying to get rid of them. They have Landstar trailers like clogging up their property and they can't get rid of them. And then I deal with trailer utilization and they're like, we don't have any trailers. The trailer utilization department at Landstar does not actively look for like abandoned trailers. They just look for any driver that's been sitting idle for 10 days or more. I think they've actually changed the idle time to like 12 days. They've increased the idle time to like 12 days or something. But that's how they find empty trailers, is they just steal them from drivers. I'm like, you guys realize how inefficient that is? You realize that if you steal a trailer from a driver, you're just creating work for yourself. Now you're going to have to find that driver a trailer. And like, yeah, the trailer utilization people just don't get it. I was trying to explain that to them. I'm like, I need a trailer, and you're taking the trailer from me. So as soon as you take this trailer from me, then I need you guys to find me a trailer. Do you understand how that works? And they're like, I'm just supposed to manage utilization and make sure these trailers are used. Like, you realize that Landstar's fleet size is shrunken like half. We like have half the trucks we had 2 years ago. There's a lot of trailers sitting around. I'm just supposed to take trailers from people that are on the idle list. I mean, it's just like talking to a wall. They're just, the trailer utilization people are just like customer service people. They don't actually... Anyway, let's not rant and rave about them. I've ranted and raved about them so many times. They are so incompetent. But... yeah, couldn't find the trailer over here. So I went back to the truck, and on my way back to the truck, there was somebody walking around the shipping area. And I, started chatting with them, told them who I was, what was going on, and they said that they could check on the trailer for me. They could check on the status of the load. So they unlocked the door to the shipping office, and I was like, you want me to wait out here? And they're like, no, come on in here. So I went inside, and they looked up my load, and they told me what trailer it was, what door it was in, and they said somebody's already assigned to it. They don't know if they've even started loading it yet, and they have no idea what the ETA was. But it's in a dock door, and it's assigned to someone. That's all the information they could tell me. And they said the shipping people that show up at 6 a.m. will be able to tell me more. So I waited until 6 a.m. Actually, no, wait. While I was talking with him, I said, am I cool to park here? And he said no. He said there's going to be somebody scheduled to be in that dock door first thing in the morning. So they're going to make you leave when they show up. And I said, okay, where do people normally put the empties? Do I park it along the roadway or in the drop yard, or do I put it in a dock door? Like, what do I do with what are they going to have me do with my empty? And he said, well, if you can find a spot in the drop yard, then put it in the drop yard. If not, then you can just park it along the road. So I came over here and I found a spot in the drop yard. That's my trailer right there. The third trailer, 669130. And then I went back over and I parked next to their tractors. They had 2 tractors. There were 3 parking spots for tractors in their shipping area. And I parked they had 2 tractors, 1 empty spot, and I parked in the empty spot. Waited till 6 a.m. At 6 a.m. I checked back in with the shipping office. And they told me that the load would not be ready until tomorrow. I said, are you sure about that? Like, I know it's delayed by a day. It was supposed to be ready on Sunday. So when you say tomorrow, you mean tomorrow, or do you mean it was delayed by a day? And it's going to be ready today. And he said, no, it'll be ready tomorrow. It's like, wow. I said, is there no way it's going to be ready today? And he said, it's possible. I said, okay, well, what time could I come back over here and check on the status of it? Like, what are your hours? And he said that his shift works until 2:30 p.m. and then the next shift starts at like 6:30 in the evening. So there's like a 4-hour gap in between shifts. He said it might be ready in the middle of the night because that next shift, they're probably going to be the ones that finish loading it. So it might be ready in the middle of the night. I said, okay, awesome. I said, is there any way you guys could notify me? And he said, yeah, let me get your phone number and I'll put your phone number down. So he put my phone number on the load, and they're supposed to call me whenever the trailer's ready. And so then I walked out of the shipping office, and just as I walk out of the shipping office, there's somebody getting out of a car that just parked over where the tractors are at. And they parked at the end of the row of the tractors where there's not a parking spot. And he looks pissed off. He's walking toward the shipping office, and he goes, "Your truck?" Really mad, really angry. I said, "Yeah, that's my truck right there." He said, "Mind moving it?" I was like, "What? Like, what's going on?" And apparently he was the yard dog. And that's the reason we call them yard dogs, is because they're defensive of their property. You know how dogs are? Whenever you, like, get near their property, they start barking at you. That's the way these hostlers are. These yard dogs. They're like junkyard dogs. You know, they just yell and scream at you if you do anything wrong on their property. So apparently, now he didn't say this, but apparently I think I was parked in his car parking spot where he parks his car. And he was pissed off that I was in his car parking spot. I think that's the reason he was so mad. But he started like ranting about how, I can't have any trucks over here, otherwise I can't move these trailers around. If I let any trucks over here, then everybody will start parking over here, and then I can't get anything done. And I'm just sitting there thinking in my head, I'm not parked in your way. I'm parked with the other two tractors. Like, I'm not in anybody's way here. But I'm pretty sure that was his personal parking spot where he parks his car, which he could have just said that. But no, he was throwing a little tantrum and making up a whole bunch of stuff, which here he comes right now. Let's see if he runs me out of this spot. I'm actually going to ask him if he drives over by me. I'm going to, just a second here, let me pause this. He's not going to come over here. Because I don't want him to run me out of this spot. Well, now he's just taking off. That was him right there. Because I don't want to be like woken up while I'm asleep and then him run me out of this spot. But he could see where I'm at, and he doesn't seem to care. But I wish he would have stopped and I could have asked him just to be certain. Because I just don't want him to come over here and, like, if they ask me to move, I'll move. But once I get, set up stationary and I, bust out my laptop and all that stuff, it's kind of a pain in the butt to put everything away so that I can move the truck. So I don't want to get set up here and then him come over here and, "You can't park there." So I was like, all right. I didn't argue with him. I don't argue with customers. I'll bitch and complain about customers here on YouTube, but whenever I'm interacting with them, I try to be very, very nice and very professional because they're customers. I don't care how much they piss me off. I try to be as nice and professional as possible. So don't let how I talk about them on the YouTube channel make you think that I'm over here like raving and ranting to customers. I'm super nice with customers, very professional with customers and agents for the most part. I'm usually nice to agents. But anyway, I asked him, I was like, all right, where can I wait for my load? I was like, yeah, I've got a load that was supposed to be ready Sunday, and I just checked in, and they said, then I was told that it was delayed a day until today, and now I was just told that it's not going to be ready until tomorrow. Is there somewhere where I can hang out and wait on the load? And he was like, you can park along the street, or if you can find a spot in the drop yard, you can park over in the drop yard. I was like, all right, cool. So I came over to the drop yard, and I was like, man, none of these spots are open. This spot had a cone in front of it. This was the only empty spot, and it had a cone in front of it. So, can I get through here? Yeah. Oh, that's really tight. I'm fat. What about this side? Yeah, this is wider. So I drove around, and over here on this back side, they're using it as storage. And they just got crap piled up everywhere. And I was like, all right, I'll just sneak down here. I drove through right here, and I drove down here, and I was like, I can just park right down here at the very end and be down here, and it'll be nice and quiet. Nobody will bother me. I figured that this was like some long-term storage area that they had over here. And less than 5 minutes after I parked, there was like 4 forklifts that came around the corner. This person's heading down here right now. I'm gonna head back over into the other area. Like 4 forklifts come flying down that little roadway toward me. And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? And they get down here and they start picking up stuff right next to where I'm parked. And they're not saying anything to me. They're being nice. They're just ignoring me. And I get out of my truck and I walk over to one of them. I was like, sorry about being in your way. I said, I thought this was like some kind of long-term storage area. I didn't realize it was so active. And he said, oh yeah, this place gets really active once first shift gets here. And I was like, cool. I'll get out of your way as soon as you guys move and give me room to get out of here. And he was like, all right. So then I pulled out of there and pulled around here and looked for a place that I could park out of the way. There's really nowhere to park except in the street, which I don't know if you're familiar with Landstar's parking policy, but if Landstar catches you parked along a street that's not a designated parking spot, then you will have your contract immediately terminated. No questions asked. Like there's a guy that has his that uses the same shop that I use, that's been with Landstar for like 30 plus years. He said he was with Landstar since before they were Landstar. Like he worked for some company that was prior to Landstar, that Landstar like acquired or something like that, back before they were Landstar or something. I don't know. I can't remember his life story. But I chatted with him for quite a while at the shop one day. And he told me that he's one of the like million milers with Landstar. And he's one of the he's on like some driver council or some shit. I've never even heard of it. But he was telling me about Landstar's ridiculous parking policy. He said that one of the other drivers, that's like another million-mile driver that's been with Landstar for 30 years, been running some dedicated run for like 10 or 15 years, and he's also on like the driver council or whatever with this guy. He said that guy, on his dedicated run, there was like this gravel area off the side of a highway that he would park at every single day. It wasn't like along the side of the road. It was like a gravel area that was off the road, and he would park there every day and take like his 10-hour break at this spot. And somebody went by, another Landstar driver, and took pictures of him and sent it to the safety department, and his contract was immediately terminated. He was like a multi-million mile safe driver with Landstar. He had never had an issue with Landstar in like the 30 years he'd been with the company. And that one incident, they terminated his contract. That's how petty Landstar is on their rules. That is like, there's always two sides to every story. Well, there's usually three sides. There's one side, the other side, and then the truth somewhere in between. So I don't know how bad the spot was that this person was parked at. The way this guy made it sound is that it was a really safe place to park. But like Landstar, there's zero tolerance on almost all of their rules are zero tolerance. If you get caught one time, there isn't like, I mean, you're not an employee, so I can kind of understand why the only thing that they do whenever you screw up is they just terminate your contract. Like, there isn't any kind of progressive disciplinary action because you're not an employee. Like, how do you discipline somebody that's not an employee? Imagine Walmart, they work with, I don't know, Hormel or Procter & Gamble or something like that. That's one of their business partners that they have contracts and they work with. Could you imagine Walmart trying to discipline Procter & Gamble because they're doing something wrong? No. If you have a business partner, somebody you're contracted with that you don't like, you just terminate the contract with them. So, yeah, I don't want to park along the street. I just don't like parking along the street normally. Like, even before I was leased to Landstar, I didn't do street parking. But leased to Landstar, it's not even an option. The other Landstar driver is parked along the entryway to the drop yard. And I did not want to park up there along that entryway because you're parking along a roadway. So it's some legal, I don't know about legal, but it's some gray area with Landstar's parking policy being parked alongside a roadway. I'm pretty sure it'd be fine with Landstar's parking policy being parked along like a roadway on a private drop yard. I think Landstar's parking policy is mainly just about public roadways, not private roadways. But, yeah, I didn't really want to park up there because several reasons. One of them is because I don't want people driving back and forth alongside my truck all day long. So I found this little spot over here that had this cone. Like, why in the hell is this spot blocked off? Why do they have a cone in front of this? They don't want people parking empty trailers in this spot. Why? Is this like an access area? It's not. I thought maybe they had this to where they didn't have trailers parked here so that you could access the area on the other side, but it's not. It's blocked off. You can't get through here. Oh, there's a trash can. So you can't get through there. Maybe at some point this pile of stuff used to not be here and you could get through this area. And maybe that's the reason they had this open. And then I thought, well, maybe they don't want people trying to park in this spot because of how difficult it is. Because all of these trailers parked around here, these trailers are like permanently here. These are like old broken down trailers that are not moved. Like none of these trailers over here on this side, and none of these trailers, like these 3 or 4 trailers, none of these trailers move. And this spot, the only way to back into this spot is to do a blindside back. And it's angled the opposite direction of your back, which makes it a really, really difficult spot to back a trailer into. So maybe that is the reason that they blocked it off with a cone. They don't want people trying to back a trailer into that spot because of how difficult it is to back into. Maybe they've had issues with trailers being damaged or something. So I moved the cone over, and then I parked in here, and then I put the cone back. So now we'll see if the yard dog comes over and barks at me at some point over the next 24 hours and runs me out of this spot. But that's what's going on with me. They've got there's a big open like grain field over here. We're right next to some farmland. It's looking like it's going to rain, but now it seems to be clearing up. Just a second, I'm going to spit. I'm going to pause this. You don't want to hear that. All right, we're done with that. So then, after I got parked there, a couple of minutes after I get parked, I get a call from the broker, the Landstar agent. They're like, hey, the load's been delayed by another day. It's not going to be ready until tomorrow. I was like, yep, I just talked with the shipping office this morning and found out that news. And she said, are you still going to stay on the load? And I said, yeah. She's like, okay. I said, I'm at the shipper right now, and I'm just going to sit here and wait on the load. And I asked her if there was anything we could do about some kind of compensation. And she said that she would submit to the shipper for for layover pay. I don't know how much layover pay is. I think it might be like $200 or something. It's better than nothing. If they can get it for me, awesome. If not, not a huge deal. And I asked her about the freight bills. I said, are you guys, whenever you first told me on Friday that this load was delayed, I requested new freight bills with the new appointment times. And I still haven't gotten those new freight bills. I said, are you guys going to send me new freight bills? And she said, whenever we know for sure what the appointment time is, we'll send new freight bills. I said, all right, cool. And I told her that, I gave them my phone number. And she asked me about the appointments, like, when am I going to make the appointments? And I said, well, at this point, everything's going to be pushed by 2 days. If the trailer is ready by tomorrow morning, when they say it's going to be ready, then that's just going to push the appointments by 2 days on everything. So originally, I was supposed to do my first drop in Garden City, Kansas, Wednesday at 8 a.m. I said, we'll just be moving that to Friday at 8 a.m. So everything will be bumped by 2 days if the trailer is ready tomorrow morning. So they're having to go through and reschedule. I don't know if they're actually going to call and reschedule all the appointments, but they're going to write all the appointments on my freight bill. And they're going to create a new freight bill for me. But I don't think they're going to bother calling all the customers and rescheduling the appointments, because whenever I talked with them over, I don't remember what time it was. I've talked with them several times. But one of the times I talked with them and asked them about the appointments, they told me the appointments didn't really matter. That they just need to have an appointment. It doesn't matter if I show up at the appointment time or not, just as long as I have an appointment. They said that's all that matters, is that we have an appointment. The appointment time doesn't matter. I was like, okay, that doesn't sound right, but whatever. So I have a bad feeling that I'm going to be showing up at a lot of these places to do these deliveries, and they're going to be like, yeah, I don't have you on for today. You're not on the schedule for today. And they might try to refuse to unload me. But I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, because all of my deliveries are going to be very similar to like UPS FedEx deliveries. And UPS FedEx, the like local delivery drivers, they don't do appointments. They just like show up, because they're not, delivering an entire trailer load of crap. They're delivering like maybe one pallet. So you're not having to be ready to receive an entire trailer whenever they show up. So, oh, the sun's bright. And that's what my deliveries are going to be like. I have 42 stops on the trailer. And if you think about that, how many pallets can you fit in one of these trailers if you're not double stacking them? You can fit somewhere in the ballpark of like 26, 27, maybe 28 pallets in a trailer. We'll go with 28. I can't remember the exact length of a pallet, but these trailers are 53 feet long. So you can use approximately 52 feet of the inside of the trailer for storage. And let's say a pallet is 4 feet long. So 12 times 4 is 48, plus another pallet that's 52 feet exactly. So that would be 13 pallets is the length of a trailer. And you can stack them side by side. So you can do 2 rows of those. So that's 13 times 2, that's 26 pallets. Approximately, somewhere in the ballpark of 26 pallets that you can fit in a trailer if you're not double stacking them. What I mean by double stacking is stacking them on top of each other. So 26 pallets. I have 42 stops, and they can't double stack this stuff. These are windows and doors. They're really tall, so you can't stack them on top of each other. So with 42 deliveries, that means that almost all of my deliveries are going to be like less than a pallet size of product. It's going to be like a half to a third of a pallet of stuff that I'm going to be delivering to most of these places. So most of these places I'm delivering to, I'm just going to be like taking like a half of a pallet to all of them. Some of them maybe 1 or 2 pallets. So it's going to be a very small amount of products that I'm delivering to every store. So I don't foresee I'm going to have too many issues on the delivery appointments, because I'm delivering so little to them. I think that about catches you up with what's going on with me. I don't know what's going on with the Texas load. I can't remember. I think that Texas load was supposed to pick up. I think it was already scheduled to pick up before me. Like one of these trailers, I think it's this one right over here. You know what? We can go look at the paperwork right now. I think whoever was supposed to pick up this Texas load is late. I thought about booking the Texas load, and there's a few reasons that I did not book this load. It was paying like, I don't know, like it was paying around $9,000. The load that I have pays like $10,200, $10,300. So my load pays more than this one. But that wasn't the reason that I picked my load over this one. There were that's pretty tight. Let's check the other side. Better. there were a couple reasons that I chose not to book this load. One was because you really... Oh, this is not the one. This is just one they have some straps in. Maybe it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. Let's see when this is supposed to deliver. So September 9th. Oh, wow. Today's the 8th, right? Yeah, today's the 8th. So I think the first delivery on this one is supposed to be September 8th in Wichita Falls, Texas. And here's September 9th in Killeen, Texas. September 9th. I don't know. That may not be the delivery dates. So this was loaded September 6th. I don't want to give you too much personal information off this. Let me pause it while I look at it. I don't want to show you the personal stuff. They have the bills of lading and freight bill, it looks like here. Just a second. Yeah, it just says on the other paperwork, it just says on the appointment times, it says that the carrier must call to schedule appointment times. Let me get this away from the door because back here at the back near the door, it can get wet on some of these trailers. So this is how they're loaded. And supposedly, I think that's the box right there. That might be the box. No, there's no way you can fit straps in that. Supposedly, there's a box in here somewhere that you're supposed to use to mail all of these straps back to the customer. And supposedly, what they say is that you can just leave the box at your final delivery, and the receiver will ship it back with their outgoing mail. I don't know. I'll figure it out. Oh, buddy. So that's the Landstar tractor. That's the entrance that they're parked alongside. And it looks like they've already parked an empty trailer in front of them. So they're... Even if I wanted to go over there and park where that Landstar is at, there's no more room anymore because they've got an empty trailer parked there. So yeah, I think this trailer is late. I think whoever was supposed to pick that up canceled because it was on the load board and then it disappeared from the load board. And whoever was supposed to pick it up still hasn't picked it up. And it looks like it had deliveries today. So I don't know what's going on with that. I did talk with, two of the people I talked with told me that they were running really far behind here. So the guy that I talked to in the receiving area at the back of the building in the middle of the night last night at like 10 or 11 p.m., he told me that they're running 1 to 2 weeks behind schedule. And then the guy that I talked to at the shipping office this morning at 6 a.m. told me that they're running, everything's delayed by 1 to 2 days. So they're running about 1 to 2 weeks behind schedule, and they're having to push all of the pickup appointments by 1 to 2 days because they're running behind, they're behind schedule. So they're like, I don't know how to explain that to where it makes more sense, but they're already delayed by 1 to 2 weeks, and they're setting appointments with trucking companies to pick loads up. And then they're having to push those pickup appointments by 1 to 2 days because they're falling even further behind. And they said the reason my trailer wasn't ready this weekend was because of people calling in sick. They had a bunch of people not show up for work. So they're having employee issues at this location. I'm not sure if that's their only reason why they're so far behind schedule, is people not showing up for work, or if they're really busy, or if it's a combination of the two. But maybe that's the reason that Texas load is still sitting there, is maybe they, somebody booked the load and then they were told it wasn't ready on time. And then they sat for a day, and then they were told it wasn't ready on time, and then they were like, I'm done with this. And then they just canceled. Because that's what they asked me this morning when they called me up. They said, are you going to stay on the load? So I assume that because they asked me that a lot of people are just saying, I'm not waiting, and they're booking other loads. So I'm guessing that's what's going on with that Texas load, is whoever booked that canceled it. And it's probably on the load board right now, or somebody else has already booked it and they're on their way to pick it up right now. But yeah, this place is a cluster. This is the kind of stuff that I talk about this. I've talked about it in many, I've made a lot of videos, and I've talked about this in several of my videos. Avoid cheap freight. Now, there are situations that you get into where you just can't avoid cheap freight. You're just kind of forced to haul cheap freight, which is the situation I'm in right now. Is I'm in such a bad market that this is a really bad load, but for this market, this load is amazing. This is a really good load for this market. But there are lots of reasons why you should avoid cheap freight if possible. It's not just that, the load's cheap. It's also that you're operating under that cheap freight business model. If a company is paying nothing, next to nothing for their loads, then their whole business is operating on that business model. Their facilities are not adequate, like this place. Their facilities are not adequate for their needs. They're using public roads to store stuff. The brokers that I deal with, the agents, the Landstar agents, they're moving this cheap freight. So they're not making a ton of money on these loads. So they don't have the best people to work with. I suspect that they probably have high turnover. The girl that called me this morning from the agency told me that she was new. She didn't really know the answers to some of the questions I had. She's like, I don't really know. I'm still learning stuff. I'm new. She was nice. And then the people that I interact here, at the shipper, most of the people I've interacted with have been nice. The yard dog was mad because I parked in his spot. The shipping office hasn't been very helpful. And I wasn't able to reach anybody over the weekend. Even though I was supposed to pick the load up originally on the weekend. I couldn't reach anybody at the agency or with the shipper all weekend. So, it's just, whenever you're operating under that business model, everything, you got to remember that that's their business model. The security staff that they hire are hired under that business model. The warehouse people they hire are hired under that business model. So I suspect that that's the reason they're having issues with call-ins, is because they don't pay very well at this place. People don't really care about their jobs. So yeah, it's just, you run into a lot of issues whenever you're hauling cheap freight. It's not just, the reason to avoid cheap freight is not just simply that the freight is cheap. It's that you're likely to encounter a lot of issues hauling cheap freight because you're operating under that business model. Because they're cheap, they're probably going to refuse any kind of layover. So even though the agency is going to request it, they're probably going to get denied because they're trying to pinch every penny they can at this place. So yeah, it's just, everybody you interact with is hired under that, or working under that cheap business model. So nobody really cares. They're all doing the absolute minimums. And you're likely to run into payment issues whenever you're hauling cheap freight. They're not going to pay detention pay. They're not going to pay layover. You're going to have issues. If you run into any issues during the load, it's going to be a pain in the butt to get anything resolved. Whereas whenever you haul really good paying freight, it's the exact opposite. The places that you pick up and deliver are really awesome, easy to get in and out of, tons of space. And if you have any issues, you don't typically run into problems getting detention or layover pay or anything like that. So yeah, hauling good paying freight is not just, awesome because it pays really well. You're also operating under that business model. And it's like my last job that I had before I, got back into trucking. I worked in an IT job as an enterprise engineer, and the people that I dealt with that had like the basic warranty contracts were the most pain in the ass people to deal with. They had absurd expectations. Like, they had this basic contract that cost almost nothing, and their expectations were insane. They wanted like same day tech, same day parts and tech, and all kinds of ridiculous stuff. And then the people that paid obscene amounts of money for warranties, they were the easiest people to work with. They were like, yeah, I don't really care. Whatever's easiest for you guys. They had crazy warranties where, we would have guaranteed somebody out to work on their system within 2 hours. And they were like, yeah, send somebody out whenever. We can do next day if you want to do that. And the reason that they weren't in a huge rush like that is because of the business model. They had resiliency. They had redundancy. Whereas the people that operated under the cheap business model, this was like their only computer and it was broken. So their entire business was down. And they wanted like some mission critical level support where we were going to have it fixed, guaranteed resolution within 2 hours. We're like, you don't have that kind of warranty. This is a mission critical system to you, but that's not the warranty you got on it. We'll get around to it when we get around to it. So yeah, that's the difference between the good paying freight and the cheap freight, generally speaking. It's not always like that. Sometimes you haul cheap freight and the people you deal with are awesome. And sometimes you haul good paying freight and the people you deal with are assholes. But generally speaking, those are the business models you're operating under. And that's the type of stuff you're dealing with. These forklift people are showing up, and there's people walking up and down the area over there to my right. They're like doing inventory of stuff. So need to be careful what I say that they can overhear. I don't want to hear them saying that, this is a shit company. Yeah, they were just over here a second ago. But yeah, that's where I was parked, right there. Right next to where he's pulling that stuff off right there. So I think I'm going to be good to park in this spot because the yard dog just circled around. He saw where I was at. Maybe I'm wondering why that yard dog drove over here. He just kind of like circled the place. Maybe he was just checking to see if there were any empty spots. He did come over right after that Landstar driver drove through here. Maybe that Landstar driver drove back over and told them that there weren't any empty spots over here and asked them where to put the trailer. And maybe that Landstar driver was like, yeah, there aren't any empty spots, but there was some truck parked in one of your trailer parking spots. So maybe that Landstar driver went over there and complained that I was parked in one of the trailer parking spots, and the yard dog, you saw how the yard dog came flying in here. He came flying in here like he was pissed off. Maybe that's just the way he drives. That's another reason we call them yard dogs. They just they seem like they're always pissed off. But maybe that's what he was expecting. Maybe the yard dog was flying over here expecting that asshole that was parked in my parking spot is parked in one of these damn trailer parking spots now. I'm going to go over there and rip him a new one. And he flew over here and circled around and saw where I was parked. And he's like, oh, he's in that spot that we're not supposed to put trailers. And then he took off. So maybe that's the reason he came over here, was because that Landstar driver complained about me being in a trailer parking spot. Or maybe he was just checking to see if there were empty spots at the beginning of his shift. But either way, he saw where I was at, and he didn't seem to have a problem with it. So I think I'm good to go to park here for the day. If for some reason he tells me he doesn't want me in that spot, I don't know where in the hell I'd go. I would have to find another business to park in because I can't street park. I was thinking maybe I could park right here in this corner, but whoever parks in that spot, I would be reducing their maneuverability. They wouldn't be able to use this entire area over here in this corner to maneuver into that spot, which they wouldn't really need that area. Why do they have a strap across this? Let me check this looks like a really new trailer. Let's check the manufacture date on this. Manufacture date is June of 24. This trailer is a year old, and they have a strap over it right here. I think the reason that they have a strap over it is to indicate that this is a strap storage trailer. And it has a bunch of straps in it. It's not like full of straps. It just has a pile of straps at the back of the trailer. So they're using one of our brand new trailers to store straps in. Basically, that's like the best trailer on the entire property. And they're using it to store straps. That's messed up. What in the hell is on the landing gear? Is that a placard? The landing gear looks bent. I don't know if you can see it from here, but the landing gear over on the right looks like it's like bent toward the right. So maybe it's a damaged trailer. Oh yeah. So they put a dangerous placard on here, I think to point out that there's an issue with the landing gear. And if you look down at the bottom of the landing gear, it's missing the plate. So I think that might be the reason that they're using this brand new trailer as a strap trailer, is this thing is damaged. It looks like that might be cracked. And you can see in here this, and the bracket is pulled away. So yeah. This is just bolted on, so this thing needs to be taken to a shop, and a trailer specialty shop, and they just need to remove this and put a new one on. They don't have to replace the entire landing gear assembly. But yeah, I think that's the reason they're using it as a strap trailer, is because it's a damaged trailer that needs to go into the shop. That is such a shame. Brand new trailer like that getting messed up. But, well, what to do. There is a possibility that the trailer might be ready in the middle of the night tonight. Like at midnight tonight. So, I took a nap from like 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. So I'm thinking maybe I'll stay awake until it's 8 a.m. right now. Stay awake for another couple of hours and then try to go to sleep and try to get like a solid 8 hours of sleep and wake up sometime this afternoon, like 6, 7, 8 p.m. Try to just sleep as long as I can. I'll just try to sleep as long as I can. And then hopefully the trailer will be ready sometime around midnight, and I can go pick it up and start putting some miles on, get the hell out of here. That would be pretty sweet if it was ready around midnight. Because then I could go through Portland in the middle of the night. And I would be running like 10 to 12 hours ahead of schedule. So I would have some spare time. Now I'm hoping whatever trailer I pick up is not going to have any issues. I know which trailer I'm picking up. And I haven't really done an inspection on it because I really need to be able to hook up my air system and my electrical system and everything up to it and pull it out of the dock to be able to do a decent inspection on it. I should have checked the tires. I did not check the tires. I could have done that. The only thing I really did was I checked the inspection date, and the trailer was inspected July 14th. So like 2 months ago, it had a DOT inspection. But the trailer looked like it was in decent condition. So hopefully I don't have to put it into the shop. But if the trailer's ready tonight at like midnight, then that'll give me like an extra 12 plus hours on the load. So that'll be enough spare time to hopefully put it in the shop if I need to. I'm fully expecting the trailer to be ready at some point in the middle of the night tonight. I don't think it's gonna go all the way until the morning, because the night shift that starts their shift at like 6:30 this afternoon is the shift that's supposed to finish loading it. So if they start their shift at 6:30 and they're working 8 hours, that is like, what is that, 2:30 a.m. would be the end of their shift. And then the next shift doesn't start until 6 o'clock in the morning. 6 or 6:30 in the morning. So I think the trailer is going to be ready by 2:30 a.m. at the latest. And for anybody else who ever does one of these loads, this location is not open on the weekends. So had my trailer been ready on time, it actually would have been ready Friday night, because they told me the trailer would be ready by Sunday at noon. But since they don't work, well, it's a 24/7 operation, but the shipping department does not work 24/7. They work Monday through Friday with those 2 weird shifts. So that means that they would have been finished by like 2:30 a.m. Saturday morning. The trailer would have been ready by then at the latest, because that's when the shipping, the people loading the trailers stop working for the week. So knowing that in the future, if they ever give me a trailer and tell me that it's supposed to be ready, by Sunday at noon, I know it's actually going to be ready Friday night. At this location. And they told me it's different for every location. Every location has different hours. So I think I'm going to go watch a movie. I think I'm going to watch Superman. The new 2025 Superman. I'll see if that's available online. I was watching a YouTube short. I was, scrolling through YouTube shorts, playing on my phone last night, and I ran across a clip of Superman, and it looked really interesting. I wasn't interested in the movie at all. I had no intention of watching it until I saw that little clip, and I was like, okay, this movie actually does look kind of cool. The clip was Superman in some kind of prison, and there was some being that was also a prisoner that was fighting with Superman. I'm not sure if he was fighting with him or what the deal was, but basically he was able to manipulate his hand into kryptonite and was like killing Superman. And Superman was like, the being that he was fighting with, that being's son was also in the prison. And Superman was like, I can help your son. And the beings, changed his hand from kryptonite and was like, you said you can help my son, or you can get me my son, or something like that. And he said yes. And he said, but I need the sun to repower me. And the being that was able to manipulate matter made like a small sun that was able to repower Superman. And then Superman was able to break through the prison, shatter the barrier for the prison to get out of his cage or whatever, and was able to fly over to the other cell where his kid was at and give that being his kid. And then all the other prisoners were like he's out of his cage, he's out of his cage. And they were fighting with each other. It's like, no. I told them. They were fighting over who was going to get to tell the guards that the Superman broke out of his cage. Because apparently they get rewarded if they tattle on the other prisoners. So that little scene looked interesting. That looked cool. Superman movies are usually really bland. That's the reason I wasn't initially interested in it, but that little clip made it look not so bland. I was like, all right, this is kind of cool. So yeah, I think I'll watch that, and then I'll try to get to sleep. Try to get some sleep before this evening, because I think the trailer is going to be ready, like I said, sometime around midnight. And the agency said that they would call me whenever the trailer was ready, and the shipper said that they would call me whenever the trailer is ready. And I don't trust either one of them to do what they said they're going to do, because the agency is not open 24 hours a day. So if the trailer's ready at midnight, they're not going to call me and let me know. I doubt it. I could be surprised. And then the shipper, it's going to be a completely different shift. And I don't know if this is normal operation for them to like call people whenever stuff is ready. So if the trailer's ready in the middle of the night, they might be thinking, oh, whoever this phone number is for, they're not going to be, open in the middle of the night. We'll just let the next shift in the morning call them when they're open. So I made sure to put on the sticky note that I put on there my phone number, and then I put my name, and I put Landstar driver to make them, to let them know that it's the driver's phone number that they're calling. It's not like a broker. So hopefully they'll know that it's okay to call me in the middle of the night at like, I'm going to answer my phone at midnight. But since I don't trust them, what I'll do is I'll call and check in probably around 10 p.m. I don't know. I'll start checking in with them on status on ETA. Probably like 7 p.m. is when I'll do my first status check. Whenever the new shift comes on at 6:30, I'll give them like 30 minutes to get situated. And then I'll call about 7 and ask them if they have an ETA for the trailer. And then I'll check in with them again later before their shift ends to get another update, because I just don't trust them to call me. Remember, we're working under that cheap business model. I don't trust any of these people. So anyway, yeah, let's go watch Superman, and then you know what? Another thing I was just thinking about. Whenever I get home, I think I'm going to rip out this air conditioning unit that I installed. So I installed this unit, and when I installed it, it worked great. It worked absolutely amazing. And then I came back 2 weeks later, and it did not work at all. I don't know what happened in that 2-week period, but it didn't work at all. So I thought, well, maybe it's a generator issue. Maybe the generator is not putting out adequate power on the APU. So I went around for like 6 months, and I finally, I repaired the generator a few times, and it seemed like the generator was putting out decent power. But I thought maybe it's just a power issue with the generator. So then I got this new inverter which puts out enough power to power that air conditioner. So I hooked it up to that new inverter, and it still doesn't work hooked up to that new inverter. It blows air, but the compressor doesn't come on. So the inside unit blows air. The outside unit, the fan will come on, but the compressor is not kicking in. And it's not pulling very much power. It's only using like 400 watts of power. It's not using the 1500 watts that it should be using. So, and most of the power draw is from the compressor. The compressor is just not kicking on. So I don't know what happened, but I think the compressor fried out. It seized up or something. There might be a fuse. I'm going to look through the manual and see if there's any kind of fuse on the compressor. If there is, I'll check that. But I think whenever I get home, if I can't get it running, I'm just going to end up scrapping that thing. I'm just going to take it off and throw it in the trash. Because right now, all it is an extra, I think it's somewhere around 75 pounds for the entire unit. It's an extra 75 pounds of weight on the truck. So, yeah, that sucks. Yeah, I think I'm going to end up trashing that thing when I get home. But that's what's going on with me. I should wrap up the video. How long is this thing? An hour and 11 minutes? There's nobody coming over here. Well, there's no spots to put a trailer over here. There's no more spots at all. So they can't put a loaded trailer or an empty trailer over here because there's no room. And there's only one loaded trailer here that's Landstar. There might be one of these other trailers might be loaded as well. I didn't check the non-Landstar trailers. So maybe that's the reason there's almost no movement over here. But I would still expect people to be circling around through here often, checking for spots. But there's just nothing going on. Anyway, movie time. So I'm going to watch a movie, go to sleep, and hopefully I'll be leaving here around midnight or so. So hope you're having a great week. And yeah, even more drama on this load, if you can believe it. So have a good one. Bye.